Hello again, everybody. Speedway Report is produced and broadcast by the Zeus Radio Network for Racers Reunion Radio. Well, Easter weekend traditionally means a big springtime late model race. The Easter Bunny 150 did happen. The modifieds did join the late models in Hickory, North Carolina. And Easter, a bit quiet for racing, but we've got an extremely busy week approaching us. All this and more. Welcome to Speedway Report, Easter Monday, April the 2nd, 2018, from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. I'm Patrick Reynolds, and thank you for joining us with the fastest half hour in racing. Not a whole lot to report on in the Victory Lane laps. Some short tracks did get their action in on Saturday night. We'll start with the USAC Sprints, who did not get their action in on Saturday night. Scheduled to go in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Midwestern weather got that one rained out March 31st. We seem to be talking about that a lot. We do every year, and we continue to do so. Remember the icebreaker with the late models a few weeks ago. Them poor guys in the Midwest, they just don't happen. Anyway, the pass cars, the super late models did run down here in the Southeast. We had a pretty glorious weekend. In Hickory, North Carolina, the Easter Bunny 150 for Pass South and the Pavement super late models was won by Preston Peltier. Nice job. Came from the back to win that race. The Southern Modified Racing Series got another event in this year at Hickory. They were the companion event, went 75 laps, and Big Money Matt Hirschman shows up and adds his first ever win in Hickory, North Carolina. It's only his second trip ever to the Speedway, but he was a big fan of putting the check mark in that column that he has won in Hickory, North Carolina. And the sprint cars raced in Port Royal, Pennsylvania. Lance DeWeest, driving the Kreitz number 69K, got the opening night win at the Port. I got to get up there someday for the Labor Day festivities in the Tuscarora 50 some year. Been on a road trip of mine for a while. Port Royal, went there, gosh, I want to say last time I was at Port Royal, 1980s. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been to the Port. Need a trip north. Anyway, we're looking at Easter Monday here. I trust all of you had a wonderful Easter weekend, Easter Sunday, Passover, April Fool's Day. A lot falling coincidentally on the same day, just to show us all that the good Lord does have a sense of humor. But hope you all had a fantastic weekend. On-track action, very little as far as Major League Racing. Really, everybody, the Major and National Touring Series did take the weekend off. Like I reported on, a few short track events did happen, which brought me to the good old internet and seeing what's happening. What are people talking about? And my dead horse got brought up again. Going to turn to the wise words of Darrell Waltrip, who I do follow on Twitter. I got a short Darrell Waltrip story here for you. Especially our folks on Racers Reunion. You guys know how much we criticize the Waltrip brothers. DW up in the booth, Mikey down on pit road. We criticize both of them for they violate one of the things I was taught when I entered into journalism is tell the story, don't be the story. They both of them, sometimes I hear them making themselves like a stand-up comic act and not really always reporting the motorsports world news. I look at, Chris Economaki, Ken Squire, and they upheld themselves with dignity. Maybe cracked a joke now and again, but really wanted to tell the story of what was happening in the race. DW in the 1990s, as he ended wound down his driving career, still racing Sunday afternoons in the Cup Series, and he spent a lot of Saturdays, sometimes Fridays, in the broadcast booth with the cable networks on the support races. I thought he did a fantastic job back in those days. Great storyteller, great analyst of what was going on. When he retired from driving, went to the booth full-time, I did not become a fan of it. I kind of was removed myself as a fan of his broadcasting methods. Anyway, I still follow him today on Twitter. Still has online on Twitter, has some great insight about the sport. I don't agree with him on everything, especially what we're going to talk about here. And let's pop up a couple of his tweets. Excuse me. Tweet 1. I'll quote him. Everyone complains about how much it costs to get into a racetrack. I like the movie theater theory. Doesn't cost much to get in, and no one complains about a $10 bag of popcorn and a $5 Mountain Dew. I'd let fans in for free and hope they eat a lot. Well, if you're going to let fans in for free, yeah, that's a great idea, and then frees them up for the concession stands. If you're looking at making money in the bottom line, that could actually work as far as the cheeseburger and hot dog crowd goes. I'm going to go back to his analogy here about the movies. Doesn't cost much to get in. Depends on whose opinion you got there, DW. I think it does cost a lot to get into the movie. I think certain racetracks, it costs a lot to get into the racetrack. Quote, again, no one complains about a $10 bag of popcorn and a $5 Mountain Dew. Yes, they do. I complain all the time about the movies. That's what keeps me away from the movies a lot of times, is how much it costs to go. When I go to the movies, I like, the experience of it. Price of the tickets, yeah, I get a little junk food, a little popcorn. It's part of why you go. Big screen, big sound. Need some munchies for it. But it costs, I think, in excess to really go to the movies nowadays. I think of the same factors here at a racetrack. I've seen that with some local tracks where the ticket price is low, not that much, but dang, yeah, you're going to pay $5 for a soda and $10 for a hamburger at the concession stand. Fans notice this stuff, DW. I got to tell you, they do notice it. I can't say that nobody complains about this. People do go and realize how much it costs them at the end of the night, plus their fuel driving and forth to the track. No, I don't think this plan would work at all. People do complain about the movies, how much it costs. People stay away from the movies by how much it costs. People stay away from racetracks because of how much it costs. It's no different than buying anything else in the world. Cost versus value of what you're getting. Tweet number 2 from Darrell Waltrip, which was a follow-up. He tweeted these back-to-back, which this is a real, I think the meat of my discussion here tonight. I'll quote DW again. I guess my question is, if you could get in the racetrack free, would you go? I know it's the sum of all the parts, hotel, gas, food, but what's the number one thing that keeps you from going to a race? Yeah, if you got into a racetrack for free, a lot of times I do with a media credential. If I went as a ticket buyer, sometimes I go in that aspect as well, just a fan. I do spend a lot of summer Saturday nights at the racetrack. I go cover some races as a journalist. So, it depends on the track, how much it costs to get in, and I do think about the concession stands. It's the sum of all parts, hotel, gas, food, and what's the number one thing that keeps you from going to a race? I think Darrell was really addressing Major League NASCAR racing with all this, not necessarily the short tracks. Could be, but I think that's what he's thinking of, especially the Cup Series. They are at least discussing, after all these years, the folks in power, the folks in the public eye, the empty seats that are in the grandstands. We've talked a lot about the mathematics of television ratings, how those aren't really always an accurate statement of who is and who's watching, with so many people going, watching, sports on devices, movies on devices, iPads, catching up later. Television show ratings are down, but people are DVRing them, watching them online or on demand within the next week, within the next month. Racing is no different from other sports in that regard. The number one thing that keeps you from going to the race, I'll address Darrell's question, what I think he's asking about. And to me, if you figure in cost, or you figure in my journalism job, which, if I had a media credential, I do not pay to go. If I'm working and covering the race, they do let me in with the credentials. But even with the credentials, some of what the number one thing, I had to think about this for a while, and it's my interest. It's not always the fuel to the racetrack or the hotel, the food. That's part of it. Yeah, it is. I factor that in, but what's the one thing that keeps you from going to the race? Go back to the movie theaters. If I'm really interested in a movie and I really want to see it on the big screen, because I'm a sucker for the big summer superhero blockbuster style movies, I'll go and then complain about the costs later. I'll do that, but I'll still go. Racetrack, we'll take a couple weeks ago, and I'm not going to pick on Martinsville Speedway because I think it is the best speedway on the Cup Tour. but I did not attend that race as a fan or as a journalist. What is the number one thing that keeps you from going to a race? It is my interest. Now, if we're talking about the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, it's my interest. It's the same thing. As I said, we're digging up the dead horse. How do we get more people to the races? The biggest thing that turns me off are the playoffs. The chase for all those years, the playoffs. I don't think the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Tour has crowned a legitimate champion in a legitimate system since 2003 with Matt Kenseth. Playoffs do not belong in auto racing whatsoever. Now, you're asking, well, what does that have to do with the race? I'll tell you, when I grew up and I followed this sport as a young boy, champions of this series were revered. This was, to me, the highest level of racing, the highest level of stock car racing in the United States. And the champion was just beyond comprehension of how good these people were. A champion in the NASCAR Grand National Series. You were the best of the best. And now I feel like I'm just seeing a watered-down system and a watered-down series. We take Dale Earnhardt and we take Richard Petty. We look at their 7 championships. You look at Darrell Waltrip's championships. You look at Cale Yarborough's championships. And you look at them, and it's just revered as to what these guys did with the teams they were with, their driving ability. And since then, that championship vision, that crown, that cup, means very little to me because of the system we use with the playoffs. That has trickled down to my interest in the series. That's how it happens. It starts from the top, moves down, and I have less interest in the series. It's a stretch to look at the race itself versus a championship, but you're going to a race in a series that I don't have a lot of interest in anymore. Now let's jump to the race itself. 500 miles at Martinsville, 500 laps at Martinsville, 500 miles at Daytona, 500 miles at Pocono, 400 miles at Pocono. Take your pick. I don't care. It's the stages do not do it for me. Never have, never will. I don't like the Busch Clash / shootout / whatever that we have in February for so many years where we stop, have a planned break. Never liked the All-Star race because there's a stopped planned pitting break. Never liked any race where there's a planned stop. I'm just not a fan of it. All this are onions. What do I mean by onions? Longtime listeners of this show have heard this story before. Onions are something I don't like. I don't care for. If something comes with onions, I will go to a restaurant and say, could you please hold the onions? I don't like them. You can show me on paper how wonderful onions are, how healthy they are, how I should be eating onions for all these reasons on paper. That's great. I don't like the onions. I don't want them. I'm not going to order them. Playoffs in motorsports, stages in motorsports, I don't like them. Show me all the numbers you want. Show me how close the championship. Show me how the great racing at the end of these stages. Show me the points. Show me playoff points. Show me the championship, the chase, the playoffs, the stages, the blah, 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 blah. I don't care. They're my onions. I don't like them. I was here in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s where me watching on cable TV helped build this sport. I watched the grandstands get built. I watched 5,000 seats go up at Dover. They were sold out. We had a waiting list. We built another 5,000 seats at Dover. They were sold out. There was a waiting list for tickets. I didn't stand a snowball's chance in Satan's playground to ever get a ticket to Bristol. It did not exist. They were willed from generation to generation. You couldn't go to these things. I watched all this happen. I was part of it. I was buying tickets as a teenager. I was watching this on television, giving you the TV ratings. I was on ESPN and TNN. I watched this thing build. We never had a chink or a crack in the armor until 2005. That's when the numbers started showing up as absolutely something started to dip. It did not keep accelerating up. The last championship without a playoff was in 2003. The first champion with a playoff was 2004. 2005, we started seeing cracks in the armor. Just do the math. It is that simple. If you take away playoffs and you take away stages, give me 14 years, just like we've given NASCAR the last 14 years with this format. Let's see where the sport is, because this isn't getting it done. And Darrell Waltrip won't be asking questions like this on Twitter in 14 years about how do we get more people and what keeping you away from the racetrack. We had the world by the cojones. We passed hockey, baseball, football, basketball. They were looking over their shoulder. They were watching what NASCAR was doing because it was coming. And they decided to change it, messed it up, and here we go. The number one thing that keeps me from going to a race, playoffs. We've had a glorious series, a revered series that I don't really care that much about. I still do watch racing. I still follow it. But Sunday afternoon, must-see TV that I used to plan my whole week around, if I got nothing else going on, I'll watch the race. But I'll freely find something else to do if it's a nice day and other things are going on. And friends, family, what have you are going on. So, Darrell, we've said it for years. To me, you're asking one guy, playoffs. One thing, playoffs. Take the stages with you. I don't know if you count them as one, but if you got rid of those two things, I'd certainly give me back. Right now, you would have to give me free tickets to go to one because I just don't care. It's the fundamentals of racing that are missing for me, that I demand, that I like as a fan and as a journalist. Speaking of fundamentals, we got another event that's getting a lot of lip service, much like NASCAR's playoffs, but the NHRA 4-wide event in Las Vegas. We've got the gimmick race, the 4-wide gimmick race here in Charlotte every spring coming up in a few weeks. We're having a second one, this time in Las Vegas. We'll have 4-wide in Vegas, 4-wide in Charlotte this spring. Why? It's much like the countdown to one. You talk to insiders in the NHRA and drag racing off the record, they're not a fan. They like drag racing 2x2 the way it was meant to be. They like their championships decided just a season total of points. Put a microphone and TV cameras in them, they do back the NHRA. Why NHRA did this? I don't know. Maybe copying NASCAR and not paying attention to the road that they're going on. I still dig drag racing better than NASCAR at the current time, but why do we need a second 4-wide? I know Bruton Smith, Speedway Motorsports, they own the strip here in Charlotte. They own the strip in Las Vegas. So I could see from their point of view, build a second 4-wide track, but be careful. NHRA, you are on thin ice with gimmicks. We've seen how NASCAR fans have revolted, left the sport. Gimmicks do not work. We've got another gimmick coming up this weekend in Las Vegas in the strip with the 4-wide. I have seen this before. It is a spectacular sight. Once a year, I don't know. I'm not a drag racing diehard. I did not grow up with this, in my blood as a drag racing fundamentalist. But I get it because I just talked 15 minutes about my pain with NASCAR and stock car racing. So someone that grew up with drag racing, I get your pain with the lack of fundamentals. I don't know if the sport would support or really cheer on a second 4-wide race. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But careful of the gimmicks. I'm telling the NHRA right now. Easy on the gimmicks. You've got your countdown to one for a championship. You've got a second 4-wide event. Do not get too far away of the fundamentals of what got you there. It's you're on dangerous territory. I see where you're going, but be very, very careful. This is April the 2nd, which we can proudly say next month, the month of May. Magic. To grown-ups like me, this is November 1st, and next month is December, and the end of the month is Christmas. Yes, love the month of May. So I'm pretty excited that we are in the springtime. On social media, on the internet, could somebody please tell me if the Southern Modified Racing Series is in Concord, North Carolina this Saturday? You go to the Southern Modified Racing website, and they were rained out, 2 weeks ago in Concord, and it had this coming Saturday as a rain day, April 7th, but I can't find any confirmation with Caraway's schedule or on Facebook, online, anywhere. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out in this day and age to go online and tell whether the race is running or not. I would love to support the event if it's running. I have no confirmation as to whether we are running in Concord on Saturday. Next week, we're going to have a good show next week. Look at this. Indy cars in Phoenix, Formula One in Bahrain, a Sunday night race in Bahrain, which would be 11 a.m. on an East Coast on Sunday. How cool is that? NASCAR Cup and Xfinity will be in Texas. We talked about the NHRA 4-wide in Las Vegas. NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour Icebreaker in Thompson, Connecticut, plus a whole lot of short track racing. Oh, yeah. Next week will be big. I don't think I'll need a tweet from Darrell Waltrip to dissect and talk about for the entire show. If you didn't hear Stars Radio tonight, go to their Jerry Smith's Facebook page. Pull up the video of Stars Radio with his guest Kyle Lockrow, young up-and-coming young man making his way in the sport of stock car racing. Worthy of a look. Head to Jerry Smith's page on Facebook. And prayers go out to a friend of Racers Reunion as well as Speedway Report, Bob Hissom, who's involved with the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame here in Mooresville, North Carolina. Lost his wife, Pat, a few days ago. So, Bob, we're thinking of you, buddy, and prayers go out to you. And we're thinking of you and your family at this time. I know it's tough right now. Everybody, in between our broadcasts, keep up on the world of auto racing with SpeedwayReport.com. This broadcast, as well as all of our past shows, are uploaded on the site. We also have racing articles to read. So I know we've still got some snow in the Northeast. We're trying to prep for the icebreaker and go short track racing. But if you're waiting for the snow to melt, grab a podcast, grab a little racing reading material. I want to tell you about a story. We pimped it out here last week. I'm going to tell you about it again in case you missed it. The NASCAR Hall of Fame currently honors 54 men and only 2 women. Of those men, 45 are Hall inductees, 3 are Landmark Award winners, and 6 are Squire Hall Award winners. One of the 2 women honored, Anne B. France, remembered as a Landmark winner and Bill France Sr.'s right arm in building NASCAR. The other woman is the winner of the 2018 Squire Hall Award for Media Excellence. Go to SpeedwayReport.com and allow me to introduce you to Dusty Brandell, honored in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Everybody, uploads of this broadcast and other past episodes are on. Get ready. Get your pen ready. Let's see. We'll go to Facebook, the Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds page, the Racers Reunion page. On Twitter, it's Speedway Report or Speedway Pat. RacersReunion.com in the forum, as we talked about, SpeedwayReport.com. And if you are connected to me on Google+, LinkedIn, and Facebook, we are all there as well. So plenty of ways to get your podcast filled. I want to thank everyone on the Facebook Live feed tonight for joining the conversation during the show. I will get back and check out the comments here shortly, a little bit later. Just a little busy producing and hosting all at the same time. Thank you for chiming in. I will get back to you. And now is the time. It is April. Go see a race at a track near you. Grassroots, ovals, drag strips, and road courses are the backbone and foundation of the auto racing world. Head out to a track this weekend near you. I want to thank all of the military past and present for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life, including the simple things like bench racing right here on a Monday night. Freedom is not free, and a veteran paid that bill for us. To all of the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report, take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You have been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and follow me on Twitter at Speedway Pat. On the Drag Racing List Facebook page next is Racin' and Rockin' with Draglist.com. BP, JB, and BS will cover drag racing and some great music. We will be back live next Monday, April the 8th, with news from Formula One in Bahrain, NHRA's 4-wide in Las Vegas, NASCAR in Texas, Thompson's Modified Icebreaker, Indy Cars in Phoenix, and a whole lot more. It's going to be a good weekend. Thank you all for joining us. I will see you next time.